Gentlemen, welcome to the program. According to the latest news, the handover of the prime ministership will be starting from May the 15th. Of course, we all saw the message coming from Prime Minister Lee talking about his handover. Now, from Singapore, our two guests, Dr. Tan first, Kiwi, tell me more about your thoughts on this handover.
This is we've been preparing for this for maybe the past 2 years, so this is not it's not big news. And of course, those who live and they know that all this preparation, they are very meticulous in selecting the right leader. So actually, we don't expect a lot of many major changes. It's not like, let's say, in other country, a new party comes in and they have new policy, then they expect new changes. But this Mr. Lawrence Wong is from the same party. He's been nurtured and groomed by the same party. So I'm sure he embraced all the policies and philosophies of the same party. So we don't expect a lot of changes. I mean, of course, everyone is different. So of course, he will have some difference. But I don't think there's going to be any major shock.
Hsien, continuity, that's pretty much the key word?
Yes, I think Dr. Kiwi Tan, got it right. It's very much, change amid continuity. And I think that's something that, the Singapore political leadership has always prided itself. The consistency in policy, across time, across generations. Of course, with the necessary adaptations, to take into account how society is changing. Right. But yes, this has been much anticipated. I think it brings to an end, the uncertainty, that had dogged the transition, earlier on. So I think it's something that Singaporeans are looking forward to. A new leadership, could offer the prospect of new policies.
All right. Over the past few years, Singapore, together with others around the world, went through tremendous challenges, economy, pandemic, and the list goes on. But today, in retrospect, what do you think, Kiwi, Prime Minister Lee do right?
Well, I think what he has done right is to select the right person. I mean, I think you mean the COVID-19, disruption. Okay, that was, of course, unexpected. He was supposed to sort of hand over much earlier, but because of the COVID pandemic, he decided to stay on until it's over. And now that it's safely behind us, that's when he decided to hand over. But if you look at his record, I'm an economist, and from an economic point of view, the record of the past 20 years is very good. Everything has gone up, almost everything. So, if we just look at just economic figures alone, you really can't complain over what he has achieved in the past 20 years.
The pandemic was certainly a test. To you, Hsien, what do you think he did right over the past few years when every leadership of politics was trying to struggle about, what to do?
Well, I would say that, Prime Minister Lee, was able to rally, the country behind, the difficult measures, that were put in place to curb the spread of COVID-19. And I think there was also, the significant efforts put in to ensure that businesses, particularly, in key industries, such as civil aviation, were able to maintain, sufficient staff numbers, because I think, the government was very mindful that even as they sought to deal with the immediate concerns of the pandemic, they also had to plan, for the future, right? And the concern was, whether we would be able to get back to business as quickly as possible, once the pandemic is over. So I would say that, being able to get the country behind the difficult measures, putting in place the necessary financial resources and help for businesses, I think those were important, in helping Singapore, move very quickly, to a post-pandemic normal.
Right. But Mr. Loong, of course, Singapore during the years of the pandemic, especially right after it, has become such an attractive destination for world capital and talents, including business leaders from Asia and elsewhere. So there must be something that Singapore did right, and certainly that has a lot to do with the leadership of Prime Minister Lee.
Yeah, that's exactly the reasons why I think people around the world, and China included, that while this transition, this leadership succession has long been anticipated, we are also following with great interest. Well, and also, of course, would like to pay our great respect to Prime Minister Lee and good wishes for Prime Minister Wong. As for the success and achievements of Singapore that has been made, either in terms of achieving stability, prosperity, and also making itself attracting place for business, for investment, I think there's, of course, reasons for that. And China, in the past decades, particularly since I think the opening up and establishing diplomatic relations, has always been working closely with Singapore, learning from each other, and in the sense that China and Singapore can develop together, play a role, I think, and that a kind of factor of stability and certainty in this region.
Though Singapore, geographically speaking, is relatively a small country, the role it plays here in the region in Asia and beyond is much more than its geography, both in terms of international relations and also in Singapore's traditions with China, particularly during some critical junctures of China's contemporary history. So, Eugene, Lawrence Wong is of the so-called 4G, the fourth generation of Singaporean leaders. Of course, he has been very experienced both as the Deputy Prime Minister and also as the Finance Minister. To you, what this generation of leaders need to learn in order to have Singapore as significant as it is today to the rest of the world, while at the same time playing a constructive role in the region and beyond?
I think what's really essential, for the fourth generation leadership led by, Mr. Lawrence Wong, would be to ensure that Singapore continues, to be relevant to the world, because relevance is important for Singapore to survive. It means that we have a role to play. So that means being nimble, being ahead of the curve when it comes to looking at the new economic opportunities, and increasingly playing our part in the international community. I think as Singapore progresses, there will be greater expectations for Singapore to contribute to regional peace and stability. We have always been doing that, but I think the next generation of leaders are very mindful that it is important for a small country like Singapore to have its voice heard and to play a constructive role in international politics, particularly with concerns over great power rivalry in Southeast Asia, and I think the leadership will be very focused on ensuring that Singapore can play that constructive role in furthering peace and prosperity.
Kiwi, your thoughts on the same question?
Well, we try to remain relevant, but you must understand, since we started, let's say in 1959, we were more the most prosperous economy within ASEAN. So of course we had good leaders, so we stand out. But now, in the past 5 to 10 years, all our neighbors are growing rich as well. So the danger is that, if let's say Indonesia or any country of Vietnam, they grow bigger, prosperous, we will become smaller. So I suppose if we want to play our role, we must try to be keep on maintaining our prosperity, so that we can continue to contribute. Because once our prosperity goes and other neighbors overtake us, then people will tend to maybe think twice about listening to us. That's the challenge.
And the other thing, of course, is about the U.S.-China relations. Singapore has always been playing a bridging role, to put it very politely, between China and the United States, being good listener, while being a constructive partner in trying to bring peace and stability between the two countries. So, of course, now things are changing very fast, and the factors that are having an impact on this are also moving. So, Kiwi, your thoughts on that? Singapores role?
Well, I mean, our leaders in the past have been very successful to navigate this, because basically, I mean, we are a really small player between really two big elephants, and China is getting to be a bigger and bigger elephant as years progress. So we have to to be peaceful to both parties, because we are really a small end compared to the big economies. So hopefully, all of previous leaders have done that, and our next, the Lawrence Wong and the rest of the years to come, will continue to do it. Because if not, then we'll be irrelevant.
Right.
And I'm confident that they can do it.
This year is a very eventful year, to say the least. Half the world's population going to the polls to elect their leaders, including in the United States, which the result will be announced later in November. So certainly the change of personnel in terms of prime ministership in Singapore, almost half a year before that. So, Mr. Loong, tell me more about your thoughts on both the timing, the significance of timings of this, and also what you see the role of Singapore could still remain to be. Your colleagues just saying China is getting ever bigger.
I clearly remember that Singapore Prime Minister Lee, when it is needed, then it would not hesitate to speak up. As far I remember, I think he wrote a few years back, wrote a very interesting article published on foreign affairs and others. He would use various kind of platforms through various ways to express Singaporeans' views, which I think now is much needed in this region and this world. And certainly, I think the region as a whole, and China included, would like to continue to see that Singapore to play such right role. The most important for me as a sort of scholar is ideas. Skill matters, but ideas matters more. And in this fast-changing and uncertain world, Singapore, despite the size, it can and it should, and I think it is expected to continue to play an important role in this regard. On the question of right and wrong, on the question related to peace, stability, and prosperity of this region and the world as a whole.
Well, we're going to see how that role is likely to proceed for Singapore. I'm sure there will be voices from all sides asking Singapore to be having the right ideas. Having said that, though, the last question regarding the Singapore economy and also the immigration issue, those have always been a difficult one for Singapore. Now, for our two Singaporean colleagues, your thoughts on what might be the major challenges and could be the solutions already in sight on these issues for the new Prime Minister? Hsien?
Well, I think in terms of immigration, there is the need to take a balanced approach. I think Singapore will always remain an immigrant society given our low domestic birth rates. And the economy is growing, so we need a variety of talent, not just in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality as well. So the challenge is, to make immigration policies work for Singapore, right? And that means, ensuring Singaporeans that talented people who come in, will not result in Singaporeans being worse off. I think where the economy is concerned, I think there is the need to continue to be creative, to be able to be ahead of the curve, whether that means in investing in new technologies, in going to growth areas, such as green technologies. So I think that's something which the leadership under Mr. Lawrence Wong, will keep a very close eye on. We always have to be one step ahead. I think that's the fate, for a small country like Singapore.
Kiwi and Eugene, as well as Loong, thank you so much for the three of you joining our discussion. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.